All right, am I on? Excellent. All right, we're going to make this little COVID-safe handoff. Happy to be here with y'all. It's an honor to share this stage. And before we start, one thing I do just want to bring to your attention out there is that it's been 105 days since Breonna Taylor was killed, and the men that killed her are still free. It's sobering. And that's part of the reason why we do what we do. So I'm just going to bring you into a little bit of what we're trying to do with Portrait Coffee, and we're trying just to pour a new narrative. I don't know if I need to click it right now. Y'all can just embrace the awkwardness that comes with us trying to do this and act like you're here, but you're not really here. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pour a new narrative in coffee. For all the type A's out there that already have your notes app up and you're trying to take notes, I'm just going to give you my 2 points up front. And the 2 points that I have is this. Insecurity is always a thief. It's always a thief. And geography is never an accident. That one's going to come later. So just a little bit about me. I didn't like coffee 9 years ago. So I got into it reluctantly. So I tend to live my life by a set of rules that I find out when people want to extend hospitality to me. If I just have these arbitrary rules of what I do or don't do, I don't come off as rude when I reject it. I come off as principled. So in my 20s, I came up with just a list of arbitrary rules, and they're things like this. They would say, John, why don't you smoke? And just the rule that I came up was, I don't enjoy things on fire that close to my face. Folks would say things like, John, do you want salad? And I said, well, I don't eat salad because it tastes like outside. That was a rule that I had. They'd say, John, why don't you like the outside? And my rule was, I like the outside, but I think the best use of outside is on its way to inside, right? And so when folks would say, hey, John, do you want a cup of coffee? The rule that I created for myself was, I don't think beverages should be warm, right? Warm liquid already has a name. It's either bath water or soup, and I don't find either particularly appetizing, right? Well, all of that changed for me when, as a 27-year-old pastor, I just found myself working these early mornings and late nights, and I got to a place where I had to have something to keep me up. All we had in the house were these little Folgers instant crystals that my mom and my dad left, so my wife made it for me, and I tasted it, and I said, it's not that bad. So then what I did was what I do with everything that I get involved in. I really started to just nerd out on it and just try to explore what it was like. And so in 2012, I got a chance to start traveling the country to speak. Twitter was just starting to pop off then. So whenever I would land in a place, I would tweet and ask folks, where are the best coffee shops? And all over the country, I would walk into these shops and I started to notice a coincidence. My introduction to coffee was filled with insecurity. Every time, just as a black man in the U.S., I found myself walking into the front door of an interest. Insecurity was there to greet me, telling me that I didn't belong. So I walked into a coffee shop, and this is what I saw, right? These are the dudes. You know him, the bearded white dude with a axe, the too tight pants on, rolled up. You see the little boots. I wore a flannel today to show my solidarity with the coffee community, but I'm married, right? So there's no way that my wife would let me leave the crib showing that much cleavage. But I would see these guys and I would feel like I don't belong. So I spent my time trying to research and search, just trying to look for somebody that looked like me, that was involved in this thing. And I had to dig and dig and dig. And then when I found out how coffee started, my mind was blown. I know there's some of y'all in here that may know this story, but if you don't, humor me. This is what my introduction to coffee should have been. Over 1,000 years ago, coffee was discovered in Africa. An Ethiopian goat herder named Kaldi was with his goats, and he saw that when his goats would eat these cherries, the goats would be turned, just lit. And he said, "What is this?" So we pulled it out, found out that I can take the bean, roast it, grind it, pour water on it, and create coffee. And he discovered it, right? Not a Christopher Columbus discovery where I find somebody's paper and put my name on it. This was an actual one. So I spent my time trying to find somebody that looked like me that was involved in coffee, and I was blown away when I found out, no, wait. It's not just people that look like me that are involved. The inventor of it was from the same continent that my parents were grown up in, and that completely changed my perspective. Insecurity had me ready to give up on an interest because I felt like I didn't belong. But then the more and more that I dug and found folks that looked like me started it, I felt like, I've got to carry this on, right? And the reason why I say that is because it's crazy, right? I was frustrated that I had to dig and I had to do all of this hard work to find somebody that looked like me. The inventor of coffee had no clue that 1,000 years later, it would be the second most consumed beverage globally, right? Water, coffee, Coca-Cola. But he had no clue that even though it reached this far, his face would be all but forgotten, even though the pigment of the drink mirrored his own. So that set us on a spot where we're like, other people have to know this story. Insecurity is a thief. It'll have you convincing, or it will convince you that forfeit is better than failure. And once we saw this portrait, things changed for us. Point one, insecurity is always a thief. Point two, geography is never an accident. Geography is never an accident. 11 years ago, I moved to Atlanta as a 25-year-old to start a church with a group of folks here in downtown. And so when I moved here in an attempt to learn the city of Atlanta, here's what I did. I parked my 99 Ford Explorer, and I decided to ride MARTA all across the city. And so what I found out was that it's interesting how much you notice about a journey when you don't really care about the destination. So I would start at the southmost point, the airport station, and I would ride it all the way up north. And here's what I found. As I would ride from south to north, I saw two things change. Here are the two things that changed. The inside of the train changed, and the outside of the train changed. The further that you go north and you move through West End, downtown, up through Buckhead and North Springs, what you'll find is that the inside of the train changes. Black and brown people exit, and white folks get on. But then what you'll see is it's not just the inside of the train that starts to change, the outside of the train changes. The further that you go up north, the more and more the economic conditions improve. And not just improve, but skyrocket. So here's what takes place. In Atlanta, as you ride MARTA, you literally see black and brown people making their exit before they can take advantage of or enjoy the economic opportunities that surrounded them. And that may just seem like a coincidence, but then the more that I started to learn about coffee, here's what I found out. If you take the steps in the coffee supply chain and overlay it with the MARTA stops, you find the exact same thing that takes place. If the southernmost point are the black and brown farmers that own the land, right? Coffee literally grows where black and brown people grow. So you take that and replace it with the people that own the land that meticulously spend 10 to 12 hours per day planting, sowing, harvesting, reaping. And if the topmost part of the chain is the $18 bag that you buy in the store, what you find out is that as that train moves north, black and brown people get off as the economic conditions improve. And what we came to the conclusion was, that is not an accident. That is not a coincidence. It is an issue of injustice, not just globally, but in the city of Atlanta. And if you need more proof, right, here's why we do what we do. Geography is never an accident. Here's two more maps about the city that we live in. The map on the left is 1930s. It's a redlining map. It was a process that the people that lived here in Atlanta intentionally did to keep black and brown people disadvantaged and advantage people that look like them. So they would outline, or they would line, predominantly black communities in red, and what they would do is they wouldn't give loans to those communities to be able to buy homes. So they wouldn't loan money to, but what they would do is they would build highways right through them. So I live in the West End, I have for the past 6 years, and I live less than a mile from Clark, Morehouse, and Spelman, and it is not a straight shot for me. I-20 split a neighborhood in half. So you look at that, that was intentionally constructed in 1930, and the map that you see on the right is the last census data. And what you see is that the racial breakdown in Atlanta mirrors the intention that the folks had back then. The people that created that plan for redlining are dead and gone, but their plan has successfully worked. Geography is never, it has never been an accident. And so all that we're trying to do is to paint a new picture. I mean, the stories, we could go on and on and on about the way that things take place. You can think of a town like Portland, Oregon, which, if any of you know coffee, that feels like the coffee mecca. And there's a reason why you'll find a bunch of the first picture, the bearded, axe-wielding, too-tight pant, cuffed jeans, boot wearing. There's a reason why that's the picture that you think of when you think of coffee. Geography is never an accident. Here's a little history lesson on Oregon. Oregon was in the North. In the fight for the Union and the Confederacy, Oregon said, we want to be on the side that doesn't have slaves. So in 1859, Oregon joined the Union in the fight against slavery, but written in their Constitution, which was not undone until 1922, was a clause that said, we don't think black folks should be slaves. However, it is illegal for black people to own property in Oregon. Geography is never an accident, and it has implications. So seeing all of this, one of the ways that we've thought about addressing insecurity is what we're trying to do is to say, insecurity is always a thief, but insecurity can be and has to be evicted. And the way that you evict insecurity is not by prescribing behaviors, it's by changing pictures. Nobody's behavior will ever rise above the vision that they have. And so at Portrait, we're trying to pour a new narrative. We're trying to change the picture that comes to mind when people think of specialty coffee. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and thousands of words have been painted that have unfortunately painted a picture of history that's cropped out folks that look like me, and all that we're trying to do is to insert ourselves back in there so that the little black and brown boys and girls that are at Brown Middle School, half a mile from my house, that they can look and have a picture of what can be, that they don't have to look at an industry that was created by people that look like them and feel insecure that they don't have a place in it. Rather, we hope that they'll stand on our shoulders and successfully work back down that supply chain to ensure fair and equal treatment for all. That's the picture that we're trying to paint. Insecurity is conquered the same way that a mountain is conquered. You don't conquer a mountain by tearing it down. You can't do that. You conquer a mountain by climbing it and planting your flag on top of it so that people that are on the ground can look up, see a flag there, and say, somebody's done it before, it can be done. That's what we're trying to do, and we hope that you'll join us and continue to root us on in that journey. Thanks for your time.
Y'all, give it up one time. All yo applause emojis in the chat for our speaker today, John O. It's only me here to applaud, but I'm giving y'all the sounds for that. We are so honored to have John O sharing his story with us, reminding us of the history in our city, reminding us of what it can look like to change the narrative, to pour a new narrative. I love it. We want to take your questions for John O right now. So I'm going to get my phone real quick because Malik is getting ready to be texting me so we can get some questions for John. In the meantime, John, let me start with a question.
Yeah.
While we're waiting on people in our chat to think of something to ask you. Now that coffee has become such a popular drink, and we all sort of get in a routine, right, of the type of coffee shop we're used to going to.
Right.
But now when we think about justice, we can change some of the ways we're used to doing things.
Yeah.
As you are going on this path of entrepreneurship and returning to the true narrative of coffee, what would you say are suggestions people can do to be more just in the ways that we're thinking about that and what we do with our money?
So one is know your product, right? Know what people are doing. All right, here's what takes place in the coffee supply chain. People that actually own the land, right? And just so we have a framework, the economic impact of coffee in the US for a year, I don't know, all right, I need to look here. For a year is $225 billion. So $250 billion, that's the impact coffee has on the USA. So to put that into perspective, that is what the NBA does 28 times over. And the people that literally own this land are getting paid pennies. The first opportunity that they have to be able to make any income comes from being able to own the washing station so that they can export. And they don't own those, right? Because they don't get paid enough to own those. And so there are groups out there like Red Bay Coffee out in Oakland. It's done an amazing job of being able to go to places, pay people fair wages. St. Frank's, right? There's lots of folks that have done that. So the first thing that I would say is educate yourself. Know your product. There are people that are making a killing off of the backs of folks. So know your product. Do your research. And one of the things that you can do is, right, buy black. And I'm going to say that unapologetically. So it's not just that black folks should continue to help folks buy black, but it really needs to be a collective effort with people that have a conscience, realizing that the disparities that we see in our world today didn't get to be the way that they are on accident, right? The government, through redlining, created a white middle class. There was not a middle class before that took place. And so every group is supposed to rely on their government to be able to help them advance. And historically, black and brown folks have not been able to have that reliance. So they need the support of conscious-minded Americans that want to see justice. And it can be as easy as changing your coffee provider.
Great answer. Okay, other questions from our audience. Someone is asking, Atlanta is currently experiencing gentrification, including in the neighborhood that Portrait is in. What can we do to actively fight this?
Those are the things that we've been trying to work through for years, right? One of the things that we find out is things like NPU meetings where decisions are made. What we often find is there's a large absence of people that have these concerns. So we see a lot of people with concerns or they express their concerns on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and personal relationships that they have with folks. But one of the things that we don't often see is that translate into tangible action on the neighborhood planning level where decisions are made on who gets to come in and who gets to go out. People informed, not just on their vote, right? So we don't just want to vote party line. We want to vote in such a way where people are aware of the track record of the people that they vote for. And it's a complex thing, but that's a thing that, man, if I had an answer to that, I'd write a book and I would make lots of money. So in the absence of that, we've chosen as a group of folks to just try our best to live in the communities that we're trying to change and serve on a very grassroots level. So that's something that we're still trying to work through.
Yeah, our next question's coming from Alex. Alex wants to know, where do you all source your beans from and how did those relationships develop?
Yeah, so right now we source our beans from an importer, right? So the tough thing is that when you're first starting out in coffee, in order to have a direct relationship with farmers out there, you've got to understand people are selling in tons, right? So they're selling in miles, and us as an upstart, we're buying in inches. So we don't have a bunch of power. So right now we're trying to build relationships with the good importers that we know. We're grateful because we've gotten lots of connections with people that have been in the industry for some time, and they're starting to allow us to ride their coattails. And so right now we're just trying to be as responsible as we can with the influence that we have, and trusting that as our influence grows, we're going to try to carry the same integrity with us.
Molly wants to know, how will you create your storefront to speak to the Black community? How will it look different from all the whitewashed coffee shops in Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm going to give a little bit of homework for all the folks that are out here. Eugene Robinson, I think back in '08, wrote a book, Disintegration, the Splintering of Black America. And one of the things that he brings up is that after the civil rights movement, there was bifurcation or a disintegration, right? Whereas prior to that, to be Black in the U.S. was all to be oppressed in the same way. Now what he brings up is that post this time, there's actually 4 different Black Americas with all their concerns, right? You've got the transcendent elites, the Oprahs, the Jordans, the Tiger Woods, the Tyler Perrys. You've got the mainstream, right? So Black and brown folks that tend to make as much as their white contemporaries. You've got migrants, folks like my mom and my dad that aren't from here but moved here. And then you have folks that are mixed race, right? So they're Black and white or Black and something else. And what we find out is that there's a wide spectrum of Blackness. And so our aim is we want to be true to the entire spectrum. What we don't want to do is, so you're not going to walk in and see just afros and fists and kente cloths, right? But you're not going to see that. We're just trying to be true to the wide spectrum that is Blackness and celebrate all of it. So it's the type of thing, when you come in, you'll be able to feel the difference.
Book Girl 1971 asks, what more can we do in the Black community to make sure that our local businesses succeed?
Yeah, frequent support. One of the things that I would say is even before the action, sometimes we can be too quick to just act and tell me what to do. But one of the things that you find out is that, willingness to help without the wisdom of the best way to help, what that's going to do, is it's going to lead to you saying something like this, but I was only trying to help. And the only time that anybody says that is after there's been a major fallout. So the first thing that I would say is if you're on here and you may be white, or you may have found yourselves in a place where I haven't experienced the effects of racism and I'm unfamiliar with all of that, then the very first thing that you can do, not the only thing, but the very first thing that you can do is learn that the problem is not just with income. The problem is with unfair treatment as it relates to loans, building spaces. I mean, I think of our own story. There was one storefront that was in this place, Westview, and we had some dear friends in coffee. They looked at the space. The landlord was providing them incentives, tenant improvement, all of this stuff. They knew that we were getting ready to start this shop. And one of the things that they said was, hey, y'all are here. We think that this place is prime, but we really want to help and see y'all thrive. So we're politely going to bow out, and we want you to have this space if y'all want it. Well, we had the exact same conversation with the exact same landlord, and we didn't get the same warm welcome. So it's things like that that take place all of the time. And so if you have a platform, the best use of your platform is to advocate for people that don't have one. So I would say learn, dig down deep, dive, and use your platform, not just to support financially, but use your platform to advocate for people that don't have the same platform to advocate.
Thank you, John. That's great. We got two more questions
All
for
right.
you. Becca says, your first introduction was instant coffee. What's your coffee ritual or your favorite way to drink it now? And Becca says, P.S., signing up for your club now.
There we go. All right. See, that's one way that y'all can support. You know, a shameless plug is you can sign up now. My favorite way to drink now is on what's called Kalita Wave. One of the things that we're trying to do now is, there's a lot of people that tend to make coffee more complex than it is. Every morning I get up at 4 in the morning, grind my beans, pour it over a Kalita Wave. I usually have a more of a darker roast, something with rich chocolatey notes in the AM, and then my afternoon cup is more bright, fruity, Ethiopian, something like that. So thanks, Becca. We appreciate you.
I feel very fancy, John. I feel very fancy just hearing about the notes of the coffee.
Oh, yeah. No, I got you, Amina. I got you.
Our last question is coming from Sierra. Sierra asks, which, if any, of our local community leaders or city council persons do you think are doing a good job fighting systematic racism in Atlanta?
Yeah. So that is a hard question for me, and I don't want you to take my hesitancy to answer that question as an indictment on anybody, more so than just ignorance or as it relates to me. So I think I've been more aware on a grassroots level of people that have done things. People like Justin Giboney with the AND campaign, Mike Davis and the group of folks that you'll hear about, City Roots ATL, that their whole aim is really trying to make Atlanta cash that check that they wrote about affordable housing. So look up the AND campaign, look up City Roots ATL. Those are two grassroots groups that I think are doing a fantastic job.
John O., thank you so much for being our speaker. Y'all I want you to do two things. I want you to put your applause emoji in the chat, but I want you to take your dollars and applaud with them to support Portrait Coffee, to support the Black-owned coffee shops and just Black-owned businesses in general. Thank you so much, John O., for pouring a new narrative for us this morning. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the day today, and we'll see y'all next month for our theme, Underdog. Have a great day, y'all.
Excellent. Thank you.